am so embarrassed, everybody. One of my people just let me know that my last live, I had no audio. I am mortified. But as I said in that video, I said it's been over a year since I've gone live. So, and I'm sorry I forgot your name that told me there was no audio. So I hope that you see this. I know it's I am somebody. I'm so sorry. Y'all have to forgive me. It's been a long time since I've done a live. So let's start all over. Again, I apologize. And I wasn't, and you couldn't hear what I was saying. But again, I'm going to say again, it's been over a year. I have to get used to doing this again. And I am completely embarrassed, but things happen. So Leslie Jones is back in the news again. As you know, the first time she said she's single because she's tired of raising somebody else's boys. And then she said that if a man can't be her peace, then he can hit the door. Now she's saying that marriage is legal slavery and she is encouraging young ladies to not get married. And I think that that is sabotage. I think that that is bitterness and it's coming from a broken woman. And it's not right to tell young women this. If anything, you as an older woman who has lived life should be telling young women, look, if you want marriage, don't go the route that I went. I went the feminist route. I went the sisterhood route. I wanted to, be strong and independent, separate from having a man in my life. If you want a husband, don't do that. Don't listen to other women that say, you don't need a husband, marriage is bad. Because at this point, it sounds like sour grapes. And if you are not familiar with sour grapes, the sour grapes fable, there was this fox that wanted some grapes, and the grapes were too high up in a tree. And he tried to get those grapes. And when he couldn't get them, he said, they're probably bitter anyway. And that's how a lot of these women look when they say, don't get married, because they can't. And you know what? I'm going to tell you, I don't think that is they can't get married. It's the man that they want specifically that doesn't want them, which is why they get to the point where they try to sabotage other women, because misery likes company. And let me interject this again. Young person that told me that you had no audio on the last live that I did an hour ago. Again, my apologies, and I thank you for pointing that out to me. Because once I edit this, I might edit out the first part of this video. So I just want to make sure that you get the message that I'm. And thank you for tuning in, by the way. So this is what happens. And that's another thing that I said in the original video. I got to refer to my notes. I'm not like some of these content creators that can just get in front of the camera and just ramble on. I'm not there yet. I would love to be. I want to get into the habit of doing more lives. And again, the last live I did was maybe October or November of 2024. So this is what happens when women overplay their hand at life. She missed her mark. And I'm willing to bet that when she was 18, 21 maybe, there was some young peanut head boy that was into her, that wanted to take her out. But she thought that she can do better, I'm pretty sure. Or she put her career before marriage, because Leslie and I are we're in the same age demographic. And as I've said on my channel before, I said, I come from a generation where we were coming from the traditional side, going into the modern woman side. the strong, independent, career driven side, but we still wanted to be a wife. We still wanted to get married, because if you look at old shows like Martin, Living Single, um, A Different World, those were all, educated people or college. And even though they wanted their career, they still wanted marriage, you know. So, but somewhere I would say in the past 20, 25 years, we started seeing this shift that we have today. And as I've also said on my channel, the reason why we got to that strong, independent, don't need a man rhetoric that we have today, it comes from women like Leslie Jones, who again, they missed their mark on getting a husband. And so they're trying to sabotage the young women. And that's where I have an issue. Now, of course, if you're a young woman and you're letting these older women gaslight you and tell you, that you don't need a husband to be fulfilled and a family and all of that, if you want to listen to them, go ahead and listen to them. But my issue is the ones of you who decide later that you do want a husband, now you want to call men dusties and bums and it's no good men, but that's what you put out there. Because, no, it's not that what you put out there, you missed your mark. That's what I'm trying to say. A lot of these women, they missed their mark. So let's dive into marriage. First of all, marriage is not slavery. And it's funny, if I didn't mention it already, that the least likely to get married have the most negativity to say about marriage. And this is where feminism has messed up a lot of women. We were put on this earth to be help meets to a husband, not the other way around. These feminist women out here, which Leslie Jones is one, they want to be the ball busting boss itch within the marriage and be an alpha male alongside an alpha male. But they also want that alpha male to be a beta, if that makes sense. They want the strength of a man, they want his money, his resources, but they also want him to be under her stiletto heel as her soy boy. And when men don't want to do that, that's why they're having these issues out here with the men. Because men who are alphas, who are financially stable, who have options, they don't want a ball busting harlot. They don't want a ball busting boss chick. And I did a video maybe about 10 years ago about using your feminine wiles. You'll be surprised at how much you can get out of a man, particularly your husband, by using your feminine wiles. And that's something that the feminists don't want to do because, again, they want to be an alpha male man alongside a man, and you're not a man. Okay, so I think I just said that something about for feminists, something about being submissive to your husband. They view that as being a doormat, and it's literally not being a doormat. And even the men would tell you your feminism will have him having money out of his pocket, paying all your bills, or at least 75% or 80% of them, whatever. But this is one reason why I tell young women to get out of the sisterhood, because the women in the sisterhood, they're always going to have a negative rebuttal to anything that a woman that's in a traditional marriage or a healthy marriage or a good marriage, they're going to always have something negative to push back. And a lot of women are finding themselves hard to get to marriage because they have two types of women in their ear. And unfortunately, the prevailing consensus, if I said it right, of modern society is anti-marriage, anti-man, and anti-nuclear family. And that's messing up a lot of women who choose to listen to those types of women. So in my previous video where there was no audio, again, I'm so sorry. Leslie said that her father trained her to not be any man's wife. Why would a father do that? He's not going to be around forever. So, as I say in my videos before, typically you go from your dad's house to a husband's house. So, is it a thing of the father looked at her 6 foot tall, not an exotico? I'm sure they weren't using that word back then, and said, you know what? No man is going to marry my baby. So let me just tell her to get her education and just rely on her money or whatever. But that's simply not true because two people made her. Every woman that gets married is not a dime piece. I'm not a dime piece. I guess I can dial myself up, but I'm just a very everyday person. I've known women who did not look any different than Leslie, and they have husbands. I've also known women who look no different than Leslie, and if they weren't married, they kept the same man for decades. But I mean, I don't agree with that either. To me, get married. If you're going to be with a man that long, why not? So, Leslie comes off as a very angry, ball busting type of a woman. Men do not like angry, out of control women. They don't. They really don't. And even the Bible says that it's better for a man to dwell in a corner of a big house than to be in a smaller space with a contentious woman. That's not verbatim. But if you've ever been at work with a contentious woman, it's soul draining. It drains your spirit. And men don't operate like that. Men don't like nagging, loud, crazy voices. They don't like to be disrespected. And Leslie does not come off as being the type that could be sweet and docile and using feminine wiles with a husband. But the irony is, I used to work with this lady years ago. Nobody liked her at work. Everybody hated her. But she had a husband of 30 or so years. But she was sweet with him. She was like a tiger with everybody else, but with that husband, she knew how to tone it down, you know. And now Leslie could have got a man that would allow her to henpick him, but I'm willing to bet she didn't want a man that she could henpick. A lot of these women, they be wanting an alpha male, like I said earlier, but they also want him to be beta in a sense, that she can push around, but then they don't like those men that they can push around. But the point is, Leslie could find a man that would let her henpick him. I don't like a henpicked man myself. The problem is with these modern women is they want men to operate the way that women operate. And men were not made to be just pushovers. But here's the irony. And I don't know if you would say irony. Here's the thing. A man can be a pushover for a feminine woman. Men even tell you that. Let a woman be soft and sweet and she can cook. Oh, that's why those women hated that Cooking with Kaya girl. And I did a reaction video to her some time ago. But she was cute, she seemed bubbly, and she was cooking some good food. Years ago, there used to be this saying that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Feed him some good food, sex him down, don't nag him, sex him down to marriage. Don't nag him. You're not going to have an issue. Not saying that there are no issues in marriage, because marriage, like my grandmother used to tell me, and I'm so thankful that I had her in my life to help teach me how to be a wife, because I didn't get it from my mother. But she used to say that I lost my train of thought that fast. But again, it's been a long time since I've done a live. But I'm glad that I had my grandmother to talk to me about marriage and men. And, one of the things that my grandmother, I'm going off on a tangent, that she told me one day is that you're not going to get everything. She said, you might get a man that's a great lover, but not a good worker. Or you might get a good worker, but he's not a good lover. The point is, you're not going to get 100%. But what you're supposed to strive for is a man that will work with you and you work with him and you love each other and you build a nice, comfortable life with him. But anyway, but the fact that she's, viewing marriage as slavery, and I'm about to jump ahead. So she's telling these young people not to get married, but they're still having sex. So what's going to happen is you're creating more fatherless children out here because these women aren't going to stop having sex, and the men certainly aren't. So what is the alternative if you telling these young women not to get married, Leslie? What are you telling them then? What you're telling them is go out there, sow your oats. Babies are going to come out of that situation. Now you're going to be a single mother. Now y'all about to complain about that, about what these men are doing or not doing. And I've told you, young ladies, before, you get protection and provision from your husband. Having children with a baby daddy, you're taking a risk. A man that marries you, he knows that you are his responsibility. He knows this. And I've shared this with you all before. I said above and beyond for his wife and his children. Operative word, his children. He will work 2 jobs. He would get all of the overtime that he needs to support his wife and his children. There is a benefit to being a wife. Financial benefits, protection, provision, stability, moral support. You're tired, you don't feel like going to work, your husband is going to work. You can miss a day. I work with women right now who can't miss a day at work because they're single mothers and they don't have the support to be able to take off work from time to time. People be looking at me crazy. Oh, you weren't at work today? I have a husband. He can pick up the slack, you know? So there are benefits to being a wife, and I wish more women understood this. And it's not just financial. I don't want it to look like I'm one of those Shira Seven women because I'm not. Marriage comes with love and companionship. It comes with a lot of perks, you know. And what a lot of these women don't understand, I used to actually tell women this years ago when I was in my 30s. I wasn't even married yet. And I used to tell women, I said, it's one thing to be young and single. I was like maybe 36. I met my husband at 37. So I was post-wall actually when I met my husband. But unlike a lot of these other older women, I don't recommend that. I always tell women, get yourself off the market earlier rather than later. And if you don't know anything about being a wife, then seek out platforms of women who can help you be a wife. And I mean, I read a couple of books before I was a wife. Plus, I was looking at the wives who were around me, my grandmother, my aunts. But there is a benefit to being a wife as far as, oh, that's what I was going to say. It's one thing to be young and single because you have your friends around you, you're hanging out, this, that, and the other. But then when those friends get married and they no longer can hang out and hang around you or whatever, you're going to feel the crunch of nobody being there. Not to mention, a lot of these women, they get to Leslie Jones's age and they realize I have an empty house. Yes, clean and spotless. I have some coins in the bank. I've lived life. I have a good life, but there's no companion there with me. There's no husband to hold me at night when I'm upset. There's no husband to gossip with in bed. husbands and wives, we gossip in the bed. See, and with the men, they're not going to go spreading what you said. Because I sure would come home and talk my husband's ear off, you know. But there are a lot of benefits to being a wife. And I remember before I got married, one of my friends, she used to always harass her husband. And to me, she would be kind of mean with them. And I would say, "Why are you so mean to your husband?" And she would say, "Wait till you get one." And it's so true, you know, especially if you have a good man and they're patient with you. My husband is very patient. There are a lot of reasons, you know, to being a wife and having a good man. But see, you have to be a good woman. And a lot of these women, they're not good women. And I'm not saying that she's not a good woman. She very well may be. But how she presents herself in these talk shows and stuff, she comes off as mannish and angry. And the typical man is not going to deal with that. Now, there is a man who, like I said, there is a man who either wanted her in the past. It might even be one that's interested in her now, but she don't want him. That's the thing. I believe she wants a particular type of man that does not want her. And she refuses, like a lot of these women say, like Vivica A. Fox, 60 something years old, talking about she's not settling. Well, child, and it's not even about settling. You know, what you want at the end of the day is a good man, you know, that's going to love you. And that's what a lot of these women don't seem to understand. So Leslie, what she's telling these women, if I didn't mention it already, she's sabotaging them. That's sabotage. A lot of these older women are leading these young women astray. And for some reason, these women, the young women, I don't know why they're so vested in listening to these women. If anybody's leaving me chats, I'm not seeing it, you know, because when I did the video over an hour ago, there was no audio, so I'm having to do this over. So, and I think I said this because I got ahead of myself. I had to do notes because I'm not there yet to where I could just talk and, you know, without my notes. But when you're telling young women and men for that matter not to get married, they're still going to be out here having sex and collecting bodies and soul ties and then eventually with a husband. Okay. And I would say that most women either want marriage or they want some semblance of marriage. And the problem is, I find with a lot of modern women and women, particularly in our community, they're trying to get the benefits of a marriage, of a stable partner, of a husband without having to be married. And then they're struggling with that because only a husband can give you the stability, the protection, and the provision that you're looking for. But instead, these women, if you notice them on TikTok and these other platforms, and they're talking about how these men can't take them to Applebee's and the Cheesecake Factory and stuff, they're trying to, you know, they're making everything transactional with these men, just random men, instead of finding that one man who will love them. That's what y'all don't seem to be understanding. You just need that one husband that's going to love you and you build your life with that man. Doesn't mean everything is going to be sunshine and roses all the time. You know, marriage is life just like any other life. That's what my grandmother used to tell me. Because I think a lot of times women who are not married, they view marriage as either a fairy tale or they view marriage as drudgery and slavery. There's no middleman, you know, when it comes to what these women are hearing. And again, I hate that Leslie Jones is poisoning the minds of young women because marriage is not slavery. Now, as a woman, we as a wife, we are to be the helpmeet to our husbands. That's why we were here, placed here for husbands and being his helpmeet. We are here to complement each other. Women have strengths, Men have strengths. But the thing is, the feminists, they want to view the men as another woman alongside her, or she wants to be an alpha male alongside him. I mean, not physically a male, but she wants to carry herself like she's an alpha male alongside her husband, all while getting his financial support and protection. So if you truly want to be equal, then when there's an intruder trying to break into your house at night, then you go face that intruder. Then you want to be equal, then you go out there and work 80 hours a week or however many to support him. See, y'all be full of poo. Sorry, you're full of poo. You don't want to be submissive to a husband, but then at the same time, you want him to do everything for you and you do the bare minimum for him. But I'm going to tell you, as a wife, you are going to do the lion's share of the housework within the house. That's just how it is. If you didn't have him, you're still going to do it, right? Unless you just have a nasty house. And he's going to do the lion's share of going out working the overtime to pay for your house and the bills and doing the lawn and the snow and all of that. We complement each other. Stop listening to these bitter women who want to either ball bust their husbands, or they're listening to what the feminist rhetoric is about, don't let a man make you a doormat. I'm nobody's doormat. And the irony is, the women who call married women doormats and married women are maids and all of that stuff, those women ain't never been married. So how are you going to tell me what's going on in a marriage when you haven't had a husband? And so I try to tell you, young women, stop listening to those women. Find yourself a traditional women's platform and traditional wife platform. And so that's what I was going to say about Black women and women of other races. Women of other races seem to understand the whole ideal of getting married and wanting to get married, so they can live in that little cul-de-sac with the good school system and the husbands out in the yard mowing the lawn every Sunday, and the wife might be planting flowers. That don't be happening in the hood. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but Black women be struggling to get what they want out of a man because they're not wives. You get what you want within reason when you allow a man to marry you. The problem is, a lot of these women, it's the way that I want to word this. But let's use white women as an example, because I grew up around white people, as I've said before. And one thing that I could say about them white women that I used to work with, they live marriage. I got to be married. Never mind the fact that some of them would come to work and call their husband morons and stuff. And you would be surprised at the number of white women who make more money. And that's another topic, actually, because a lot of the Black women that you see online, I'm going off on a tangent, they think that, by marrying a white man, that they're just going to have this soft life and be living on a lily pad by a castle or something. A lot of those white men make less money than their wives, but somehow they still manage to live in nice suburbia in the cul-de-sac. I like to say the cul-de-sac, and, clean, nice areas, good schools, et cetera, et cetera, while Black women fight the notion of marriage. And you fight the notion of marriage because you're listening to these Leslie Jones types. And it's not just Leslie Jones. I did a reaction video it was a white woman in her 40s. And she too got online telling young women, don't get married. And I mean, she was crying, don't get married. These men, they just want to hurt you and this and that. Let me tell you, ladies, something. That's why you don't wait too long to get off the marriage or off the dating market. Because by the time you reach your 30s, your 40s, and you're still on the market, the men who are left over, Just like they say, leftover women, the men who are left over, they might be the playboys that just want to run the streets. They might be the men they have more options than you, so they're not going to choose you. Um, in a lot of cases, it might be a man that the woman might not be attracted to or whatever, and vice versa, you know. So, but going back to, the white women, they will marry a man that's a little bit shorter than them. I'm willing to bet that there's a guy shorter than Leslie Jones who wanted her, but she probably wants a 6'6", dark skinned Adonis. She strikes me as the type of being attracted to either dark skinned men or I don't know. She just strikes me as the type of what her taste is in men. I'm going to wrap this up in a minute, guys, but I appreciate the ones of you who checked in, and I hope to do some more live videos. I got to get back into the swing of things. Last time I did a live was back in 2024. And as you know, if you don't know, a little bit over an hour ago, I did a live. I did not have the audio, so I'm doing it over. But bottom line, women like Leslie Jones, she's hurting young people. And I hope that the young people who want marriage do not listen to this. It's wrong if you don't want marriage, then you don't want marriage. You find, that tribe or that community of other women who don't want marriage or say they don't want marriage. Because if that were the case, these topics would die down, but they don't. Centering men, women, those I don't need a man, women, they're always in these comment sections attacking the women who are married, the women who want to be married, calling them pick me's and whatever. And another reason why these women be lying is because that Houston rodeo, and I did a reaction to that when those women are walking around with their whole butt cheeks out. Who were they doing it for? If it's not for a man, then who? That a lady did a reaction to a church singles meet and greet where she said it was about 1,000 people there, 90 or so percent women. So at the end of the day, women, we tend to want, you don't want marriage, you want the semblance of marriage. And as I'm trying to tell you, young women, the semblance of marriage, which would be a baby daddy, a boyfriend, a situationship, just some random dude, that's not the same thing as a husband. You don't get the same thing with those types of men that you would get with a husband. So if you want protection, if you want provision, if you want, stability, he works and he comes home, he's not in the streets. And I'm not saying that husbands don't be in the streets, but that's got to be on you and how you vet and what type of a woman you are. Because you have a lot of women out here who want to run the streets and then act surprised when their man runs the streets. We're supposed to be the soft, inviting person that a husband can come home to and don't nag him. And at some point, I'm going to do some videos about what it takes to be a wife. I've already done one on, using your feminine wiles. It goes a long way with men. Men do not operate with ball busting women. And that's another thing. A lot of these women like Leslie Jones, I got a house, I have a car, I have money in the bank. They think that opinion, it does not appeal to men. Matter of fact, I'll tell you who that does appeal to. It appeals to the men who might want to use you. It appeals to the men who don't have nothing themselves. It appeals to the men who might have been raised by a single mother. So he saw, her being strong and doing it all by herself. But for the alpha males that I'm sure Leslie Jones wants and she can't get, which is why she's on here saying that marriage is slavery, She thinks that her accomplishments entices men or whatever. It does not. I'm trying to tell you, ladies, it does not. And another thing, and then I'm going to close it up, y'all. So many women get online talking about how much money they have. But here's the thing. The reason why men don't care about your money is because he is expected to pay for everything anyway. Is this not right? When you get married, your husband is going to pay for most of the bills or all of the bills. So he does not care about your money. Care about your money, why? When he already knows he's got to pay for everything. And that is my topic. And I plan to do more. If I did not mention this before, this is not going to be my usual time. I'm actually supposed to be at work, but because it's Easter holiday, that's why I'm off. I got all of my thoughts out. I got to get used to getting back in front of the camera again. I thank you guys for stopping by, and I will talk to you later. Bye.